Welcome to Tangential Soup, a weekly podcast discussing life in Australia, technology, food, fitness, and the like, hosted by myself, David Caddy, Melburnian independent developer and tea enthusiast, as well as my good childhood friend Alexander Carr, Sydney Sider, slave to the man, karate practitioner, and lover of adventure. This week we talk about delicious dishes, AI writing reviews, AI writing music, and the art of crafting a good speech. I played tennis yesterday, Alex. First time in a long time.
Cool.
Against my brother Josh and his pal Oscar. In a
How'd
sort
you
of
go?
a 2v1 American double style situation. I actually won, but I'm quite sore today.
Have you been up to much exercise recently?
No, I've slipped a little bit, unfortunately. It's the cold weather, I guess, and going up to Castlemaine and that. Haven't had too much time on the weekends either. And done a little bit of work on the weekends too, as you know, last weekend. Did a bit of overtime.
I do.
Not as dedicated as you, my friend.
Well,
I know you've got your grading coming up.
yeah, I've kind of been forced to be dedicated more than necessarily just being dedicated because of how I am. I've been really good recently though. I've been eating very well. Not eating junk food and training quite hard, and I've got to say I feel very good for it. But on Friday night, I was just sitting there thinking, I want to eat a pizza and a hamburger,
and
just sit around and watch TV and just be a general slob. But I didn't do that. I went to training. I trained 4 nights this week, which totals 8 training hours, plus, gym, and I've also been doing some running as well.
So when is your grading?
It's next weekend, actually.
Okay. So for our listeners, we're recording 2 episodes this week because I'll be at VidCon next weekend and Alex might be at OzPod, the Australian podcast conference up in Sydney. And so we won't have time to record next weekend. So that means that by the time we talk again in 2 episodes from now, you'll be a brown belt.
I will possibly be brown belt. I think we should just, be a bit realistic about this and acknowledge the fact that I possibly won't pass. It's definitely not guaranteed.
Have you ever not passed one of these gradings there?
Well, no, but I mean, so my gradings up to date have been, all but 2 of them have been junior gradings, and my last 2 for my green belt and my senior green belt were senior gradings, but obviously they're the first 2 senior gradings, so I think you get a bit more leniency on those ones. And people do fail in the last grading, which I wasn't a part of because I didn't. They happen every 6 months for the senior gradings, and I didn't decide to grade at that time. But for the last grading, a couple of people failed. I think it was mostly due to the fact that they weren't in very good physical condition and their techniques weren't very strong, which hopefully I'll be all right with. My only point of the point that I'll really struggle at will be the push-ups, because I have to do 50 push-ups in a row. Which isn't easy, as I'm sure you can probably appreciate.
Yeah.
But I think I can do it.
So physical condition comes into it a lot because you have to maintain your technique over the whole sort of session.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So the grading will go for 3 to 4 hours, and during the whole time you'll be doing physical things for it, and basically it's to display that the techniques of the grades that you've already done. So for me that's 10th, 9th, 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th, 4th and 3rd, and also to show that I know the grade that I'm going to achieve if I pass, which will be second Q. And it's also to just show that you are physically fit and that you can fight, because I mean essentially that's what karate's about, being able to fight, among other things, obviously.
So do you have to do much different from like previous levels, or do you just have to mainly do it at a higher level?
So for the stuff that we're doing for the previous levels, it's all the same stuff, but you obviously have to do it better than you would have done it before.
Okay.
So, your technique needs to be stronger. You need to have a knowledge of A, what the technique is, and B, what it's called.
So what sort of things get introduced at the second grade?
So basically, when you move up a grade, you have to do it's called a Q combination, which is basically a new combination of punches and kicks that you need to know for the grade. So in this particular one, for my second Q, or the second grade, there's some jumping kicks, which are absolutely horrible because you have to repeatedly jump into the air and kick at preferably head height, but at least chest height. And there are a series of strikes as well. So usually in a Q combination, well, I'll say usually, actually in every Q combination, basically what it has is it has strikes, some blocks, and some kicks. And you have to do them in a set order and show that you know them and show you know their names, and usually do a high number of reps for them. So for the first 3 grades, which are 10th, 9th, and 8th, we do 30 of each particular technique. So that would be 30 of each punch, and there are like 3 or 4 punches. 30 of each block, there are 3 or 4 blocks, and 30 of each kick, which have 3 or 4 of each as well.
Fair few.
Yeah, it's a lot. And we also have to do one of the stamina tests is kicks as well. So we have to do 300 kicks of different varieties, but they're all supposed to be done at head height as well.
In a row?
In a row, yeah.
At head height?
At head height, yeah.
Jeez, yeah, you would have to be pretty fit.
Yeah, you do. It's actually pretty grueling, but it's funny because I remember when we started doing these kicks, I just thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to do 300 of these. I'm struggling at 30. But as I had mentioned to you earlier in the week, I've been doing a bit of physical cramming and training pretty hard, and I'm now at the point where I feel comfortable doing those 300 kicks. It's still I still feel it, but I don't come away from it feeling exhausted or anything like that, and I feel that I can do them quite well. So it's not the kicks I'm worried about. We have to do 70 squats, which are easy, 100 sit-ups, which also isn't that difficult. It's just the 50 push-ups that I struggle with.
Do you have to actually fight anyone in the grading, or is it sort of all kind of solo work?
No, there's fighting, and it's really not solo work necessarily, because other people grade with you, so we all do the same thing at the same time, and then
yeah, but obviously for something like push-ups, that's an independent activity.
Yeah. Yes, there is fighting. As a potential brown belt, which would be my grade, I would be I think expected to only do 5 fights or something like that. It's not a very high number for my grade, and because I've done a fair bit of fighting as well, I never really worry about the fighting. Like that's fine for me. It's the other stuff that tends to get me.
Okay. Do you have to win?
No, it's really what they want to see is that you're putting in 100% and that that you have trained and that you're able to perform at a certain level. So You're not expected to win, especially because who you tend to fight is usually the black belts.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, ideally win, but it's not really knockout fighting anyway. It's just sparring. So you're supposed to get good hits in. You're supposed to show that you can take hits, but you're not supposed to win in any real way.
Just about demonstrating what you've learned.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like, it always feels magnificent once it's done, but doing it is quite horrible. The thing is, though, I feel like the training for it is always worse than the actual grading, because once the grading, you only have to ever do anything once. You'll do this particular combination. You might do it 30 times, but once you've done each technique 30 times, then it's done. You don't have to go back to it. But whereas with training, you do it one day and then you just have to do it the next day, and then you have to do it the next day, and it just wears on you.
Who grades you exactly? Like, is it just one person, or is it sort of like a group of people? Does someone have to come from like an external sort of source and come in to actually tick people off? Or how does that work?
No, so basically the organisation that I'm a part of has a grading panel. So that's black belts who will essentially assess you on a variety of, well, basically they'll assess you on what you're doing, and they'll say whether you're eligible to pass or not. And as for externals, like we wouldn't really be graded by external people just because of the way the organisation works. Like our grading systems are done based on internal measurements. So we wouldn't have someone external do it. We might have someone who is more senior from a different area come over and do it, but they would still be part of our general organisation. However, we don't need that because we have quite highly graded people in our organisation. So
right.
Not really
you're pretty
needed.
familiar with the people that would be doing the grading.
Well, I am, yes. My instructor is actually probably going to be the senior grader there, which I know it might sound like it might be a good thing, but he's just got to show that he's not showing any favoritism on the day. So I think it might just result in him being a bit harder on us.
Okay. Well, I'm sure you'll get through.
Oh, look, I feel like I'm fit enough. So that's like the fitness. Honestly, is what it comes down to. If you're fit enough, your technique should be good, unless you've been doing, terrible techniques your whole training career, in which case you've got a whole multitude of problems beyond not passing the grading.
Have you got any other events coming up, or you're just really focused on the grading?
There is a full contact tournament coming up in September, I think it is. So I will be competing in that. And because I haven't really, over winter my diet just goes basically into the bin. I just eat trash, and I eat too much over winter as well, I think. And just basically do everything I shouldn't do. And now that I've kind of broken that pattern, I'm thinking that maybe I'll just try and keep it up for just until this tournament comes around. And so I think that might be my focus, just watching my diet, try and keep it clean and decent, and try to get in pretty good shape for this tournament and win it, hopefully.
Win that and then get on to pizzas and burgers.
Oh my god, it's all I'm thinking about at the moment. I'm just craving pizza and burger. I passed a kebab shop the other day and my mouth just started watering.
Oh, you must have really been depriving yourself then.
Well, it's not like I'm eating disgusting food or anything. It's just that, so basically what my day looks like is I try and have eggs in the morning, and I've tried to cut out carbs as well. Not because you shouldn't eat carbs, I'm not saying that, but I feel like I put on a bit of fat over winter, and I wanted to, another kind of secondary goal was I wanted to reveal my six-pack, which I'm sure is in there. I just haven't found it yet.
Keep searching.
Oh yeah, that's it. Just dig really deep. So I wanted to reveal my six-pack, and because I kind of had fat on my stomach, I figured I didn't really need to be eating carbs. Excessively. So I still have carbs, but that's why I'm just having just eggs in the morning, no toast. For lunch, I try to have chicken and salad, and for dinner I have chicken and vegetables. But usually what I'll do is the amount that I eat in a day will be dependent on how much exercise I'm doing. So before I do exercise, I have a pre-exercise meal, which I may have mentioned before. It's toast, nice dark toast, like a dark rye, peanut butter, and banana.
Oh yeah, mention banana's real good.
Banana's excellent, but this combination, you will never run, well, I certainly never run out of energy when I use it. It's actually brilliant. I think that for a lot of the time that I've been exercising, I've been struggling with the nutrition side of it. Because it's hard to know what to eat, when to eat. There's a lot of contradictory advice out there, but basically my strategy is if you're trying to drop weight, you still have to eat before you train, and you still have to eat carbs before you train. So what that should be is, you don't have to eat too much, but eat some carbs and eat some protein. And basically what peanut butter, banana, and on some toast is it's complex carbohydrates in the bread, some protein in the peanut butter, and some simple carbohydrates in the banana. And it's the perfect combination. And then you can just have a light meal after you train if you want to, and you're set.
Alex's winning formula.
Well, maybe. But one of the things as well is that I've also found is if you're training and you're running out of energy when you train, then you're not really getting the most out of the time that you're kind of working.
No, well that makes sense.
And you tend to if you don't eat before you train and then you train and you feel tired when you're training, you're not kind of getting the most out of it, then you'll come out of it and you'll feel really hungry and you'll want to eat tons and tons of food. So this is kind of the most healthy way to manage that, I feel.
Yes, and you probably won't feel as good about the exercise in the first place either.
Well, exactly. Yeah. You want to be able to perform to your best. Not that I could claim to be any real expert on it, but it's what works for me.
Given we're talking about food already, you might as well lead with the cooking corner this week.
Oh, okay.
And let us know about all the fantastic dishes you've been cooking up.
Well, yes, as I had mentioned to you, David, I have had a bit of success in the kitchen recently. It was a bit surprising for me because, I've always been someone who cooks a little bit. Recently, I've started cooking a bit more, but I've never really considered myself a great cook in any real way. I guess part of that has been that I haven't really been super experimental, or I haven't been super dedicated to cooking, so I haven't put a lot of time into it. But just recently, I have probably made, I would say, the best Sunday roast so far, and that was a lamb roast that was beautifully tender on the inside. I think with roasts, a lot of it is figuring out the optimum amount of time that it should sit in the oven for.
So you've perfected that now, have you?
Well, with the lamb roast, it was just perfect. So it was basically an hour and 15 minutes, an hour and 20 minutes in the oven.
How big a roast are we talking about?
We're talking about a leg of lamb.
Okay.
So I guess probably as big as your thigh, I'd say. Maybe a little bit smaller.
Yep.
Depending on how big your thighs are. And that just had vegetables with it, and I made a red wine sauce with it, and that was beautiful. Samantha came by some Wagyu steaks. I don't know if you know specifically about Wagyu, but it's a very nice cut of beef with good amount of fat in it, which makes it incredibly tender.
Yeah, everyone goes on about Wagyu. Is it Wagyu or Wagyu?
Wagyu is how I pronounce it. I don't know
I've
how
heard
it's supposed
both.
to be pronounced.
I'm sure there is a proper way.
There probably is, as there is a proper way for most things.
Yes.
But yeah, in this particular sense, it just I did it in the oven, and I did it probably in the pan for about 10 seconds each side, and then straight in the oven for a couple of minutes, and it was just beautiful. And because I like my meat medium rare, it was perfectly medium rare on the inside. Had that with mashed potatoes and green beans. And the trick to mashed potatoes is my particular trick to mashed potatoes is you've got to put a lot of butter in them. Look at a usual amount of butter that you would put in mashed potatoes and put a little bit more in.
Yeah.
And that just makes them nice and creamy and delicious. And I actually made some really delicious scrambled eggs for breakfast this morning.
Oh, yeah.
The trick to those ones were just cook them over really low heat and chop up some onion and just fry that in a tiny bit of garlic. Kind of just saute it a bit before you put the eggs in, and then stir it all together, and just make sure you do it over really low heat. And when there's still a little bit of liquid in the eggs, turn them off, let them sit in the pan for a little while while you're kind of putting the rest of the stuff onto your plate, and then just kind of mix them around one more time. You should have the perfect scrambled eggs with any luck. And also make sure you put milk and salt and pepper in the eggs as well before you cook them.
Right, yeah. Don't mind a good scrambled eggs.
Yeah, I like them, and they're a fairly healthy alternative as well. Even if you put a bit of butter with them, they're still pretty good. I think the trick to eating healthily is you've got to flavor your flavor your food with spices. I think that's a big thing.
Yes.
Which I think certainly when I was traveling through Europe, I appreciated a lot more the fact that they use spices a lot more heavily in their cooking. And I think they do over most of the world, but like in Australia, a lot of the flavor comes from sugar and fat and salt.
Yeah.
Which is why we have
on the American
obesity
side
problems. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make nicer food though. I think it's just cheaper and easier.
Well, there you go. That's the benefit, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's why I'd say. But you know, for people who cook at home, I think, I mean, the more you learn about how to flavor your food, the less those things become necessary.
So did you read this article on The Verge, Alex, about AI writing fake reviews for Yelp and Amazon?
I have, David. And I mean, really, what's the difference between the AI doing it and actual people doing it in the end? Because I know there are a lot of fake reviews out there already anyway.
I know. It's big business, actually. Not necessarily for Yelp, but probably for Amazon and on the app stores and that. There's, like, out of Asia, there's huge click farms of, like, all these hundreds and hundreds of smartphones in some house somewhere with fans blasted on them so they don't overheat. All of them having people go into them and add reviews, ratings for things that people have paid for, just to get the volume out there, because obviously if you sign in to a different account or you sign into the same account, you can't have multiple reviews from that account. So they bypass that by having all these hundreds of fake accounts set up and running on all these hundreds of devices. It's actually pretty amazing to see some of the footage and photos from inside some of these operations.
Yeah.
But this is just going one step further and cutting out all the human interaction entirely.
Which is a really logical next step, isn't it? And you only need to build one of these systems that can, you know, generate fairly reasonable reviews, and then bam, you don't need humans at all, do you?
They do seem pretty convincing. I mean, they're not great, but I've seen some pretty dodgy reviews, so they blend right in.
I think from this particular article, one thing that I found quite hilarious was they gave 3 reviews that were written by a robot, and one of the reviews was, "I had the grilled veggie burger with fries! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Oh, and taste! Full stop! OMGGGGG! Exclamation mark! Very flavorful! Exclamation mark! It was so delicious that I didn't spell it! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! But then the other 2 fake reviews was just simply, you know, along the lines of, "I love this place, it's great, my whole family goes there, can't wait to go back."
Yes.
So, obviously it has some hits and some misses.
But even that second one, I think I've seen reviews of that caliber in many places. So I don't know whether they were written by AI already or whether the, you know, people just writing it couldn't be bothered to. I imagine, like, English is not their first language with some of these, and they're just sort of whacking it together.
Quite possibly, yeah. Although I don't know, I'm sure that some people could, even having English as a first language, throw out a review like that without any major difficulty.
Yes, very true. And in a similar vein, did you read the article about a whole album, a musical album being written by artificial intelligence?
Yeah, look, I did. I remember hearing something about Nickelback doing this ages ago.
Okay, this is Taran Southern?
Yes, who I've never heard of, I've got to say.
No, I haven't either. But it's an interesting concept.
Well, for me, I mean, what's the difference really? If it's music that sounds good, then it's fine.
The idea here, right, is just to analyze other successful music, condense that down into a program that can write similar music without infringing on the copyright of other popular songs, and then produce that music, and then this woman can sing to them and produce them and then create an entire album, and hopefully that will be successful, is the idea.
Look, I've got to say, I mean, it seems to me somewhat logical that that might be where the future of music is going anyway. So,
Well, if you listen to a lot of the current pop music, it's quite
well,
homogenous.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's all the same stuff now anyway. So,
I feel like, yeah, I mean, it is a trend that's already been going this way, just done by people. So again, this is another step towards the future and cutting out human jobs.
yes, exactly. I don't know if people will buy it though, because if you know that music has been produced with AI, would you go out and spend the money on it?
I don't know. There's a YouTube channel that I follow. I can't remember his name, but he always does some interesting experiments with artificial intelligence. And he sort of tried to recreate some jazz music with it. And some of it actually sounded really good. I mean, I'm sure you know that a lot of jazz is quite experimental. And so it sounds a bit funny anyway, even played by humans.
Mm-hmm.
So some of it was actually really good, and then some of it was complete garbage. But I mean, if it sounds good, right? It doesn't matter where it actually originated from.
Well, it's true, yeah. But I mean, when people pay for a product, I mean, I would think maybe that they pay for like the work that some person has put into it. But when that work doesn't exist, would you still go out and pay for it? I mean, maybe you would, but
I don't know. If you're going to a live performance, clearly you're there to see the artist play the music. But if you're buying a digital copy of something, in a lot of cases it's all auto-tuned and it's artificial instruments being put into the backing track and all this sort of thing. It is work done by humans, but it's sort of in an artificial context. This is kind of, it's just more extreme, right? Because someone's had to create this artificial intelligence that's then done the work that traditionally humans would have done. So it's worse. I mean, it's to a higher degree there, but I don't know. Is it much different to what's already out there now?
maybe it's not. And I mean, perhaps it's the case that we're already using this technology and people just aren't admitting to it. Because I mean,
well, exactly. If you don't know, you don't know. It's not like they have on the album that this was produced 100% by humans.
Yeah, exactly.
Support human labor.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, it'll become a thing. It seems very likely, doesn't it?
Yes.
Look, my thoughts on if it's a good product, it's a good product, I guess. I certainly don't pay for a lot of products directly now anyway. I don't pay for music directly. I just use streaming services, which is what a lot of people do. So I suppose if it sits on streaming services and it's popular, then it won't really matter, will it?
No. So what's this article about world champion of public speaking, Alex?
It was just something I came across that I thought was interesting. Just because, for me, public speaking has never really been anything I'm particularly gifted at. But I do certainly admire people that can go up and that can speak well to a crowd, engage a crowd, and get their ideas across in their speech. And basically the crux of this article was, interestingly enough, that what's important in a speech isn't how you say something, it's that you're able to convey your idea, and because people won't remember your words, but they'll remember your idea at the end of the speech. And if you're able to get your idea across successfully, then it doesn't matter how you do it, doesn't matter what the words are, it doesn't matter like the structure, if you use humor, whatever you use to engage your audience. It's just about getting your audience engaged enough to actually listen to you so that you can get your idea across, because they're never going to remember your words, they're just going to remember what you're saying or what the speech is about. And in this particular situation, this person had just won the the annual Toastmaster competition, I think.
Toastmasters International World Championship of Public Speaking.
Yes, exactly. That thing. He just won that, and he had actually had to change his speech, his pre-prepared speech on the day, because usually these speeches are held during the daytime when you have an audience that's probably going to be a lot more engaged. And this particular situation, it was held at night before dinner. And he was able to actually look at the audience and recognize the fact that they were probably thinking of other things, and change his speech to reflect that and engage them a bit more. So what he did was he used a less enthusiastic tone. He took some jokes out of his speech, and basically he was able to improvise on the day and read his audience well enough that he won the event.
So yeah, it's all about the getting a message across, and I guess keeping it somewhat simple and reiterating on it throughout the speech.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I suppose. I mean, however you get your speech across is how you get it across. Was what he was basically saying. It's not about how you get it across, but it's about giving the message and knowing the audience at the time.
So you probably want to stick to sort of one main message too, I imagine. If you start wandering all around the place, then people won't have that clear takeaway, or they might take away something that you weren't really wanting them to take away from it.
Well, yeah, I suppose so, honestly. I'm not actually entirely sure. It didn't really go into that in the article, and I can't say I've ever really been a great public speaker, but I suppose that would be an effective method.
No, I haven't been a great public speaker either. I seem to either nail it or just completely fall apart in the things that I've done, like throughout university and that.
Okay. Yeah, well, you would have had university experience, I suppose.
Yeah. And like some of them went really well. Like if I know my stuff and I just mainly stick to mostly improvisation, not entirely, like I know vaguely what I'm going to say, but like don't rehearse it to death. I find that's usually better than not 100% knowing your stuff and then trying to like rote learn something, because you never remember it entirely. And then you get to that point where you can't remember what you were going to say next. And then you just stuck staring at the audience and you don't know what you're going to say, and it just gets more and more awkward, and then you can't think of what you were going to say because you're just immensely aware of the situation you're in currently, and then you're like
yeah. No, I know exactly where you're coming from there. My most recent public, and I use public in inverted commas because I wasn't really that public, but I had to give a small presentation to my team at work, and it just kind of made me realize that I'm not a public speaker in any real way, because I just, like, the entire time I felt nervous, and I felt like I didn't do the engagement thing at all, and I felt like I was sitting there and I was talking at them, and I could feel that my volume level was slightly too high as well, and I just ugh.
Still, being too loud is better than being too quiet.
Well, yes. No, you're right.
I've been in the audience with some people that you can't really hear, and you're like, well, what's the point of this?
Yeah, exactly. And they might be giving an excellent speech, but that's worse. And I mean, even though I didn't think I did very well, I didn't lose my audience, and the fact that they weren't sitting there and talking while I was talking. But it still wasn't what I'd call an amazing performance.
Did you feel like you got your message across?
Look, the message I was trying to convey is a difficult one, because basically what it came down to is I was trying to I guess make people care about a thing that they don't necessarily have to care about in their day-to-day job, or just try and make them more aware of it so that they would care about it. But look, I'd like to hope I did a little bit, but I'm not entirely sure whether I succeeded.
Thanks again for joining me, Alex.
Not a problem, David. Pleasure as always.
You can follow and get in touch with us on Twitter @Tangential Soup, and you can find this week's show notes with more information about today's topics at tsp.fm/21. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with anyone you think might also. And we'll talk to you again next week. Bye.
Ciao.
Seems to be a bit of thumping in the background, Alex. I don't know if you know where that's coming from.
There is chopping going on. I don't know if that's...
Chopping? Okay.
Is it like... Hang on, is that...
Yeah, it's like that.
Oh, it's like that, is it? Sorry, I was tapping my I was actually tapping my keyboard. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. That must have been what it was.
Yeah, no, it was me tapping it. Sorry. I have this habit of, I think, just tapping things.
Yeah. Got to be aware of the audio quality, Alex.
Yes, you do. It's important, I know.